After days of heavy fighting, the dust was finally setting on the infamous Helmand Province. For the first time then, one Marine was able to survey the full scale of the situation he'd landed in. But his eyes darted across the barren landscape. Something caught his eye: a little dog wandering around in a war zone. Craig Grossi had originally arrived in Sangin District, Afghanistan in 2010, and he knew at that time that he was facing the toughest challenge of his career. Even though he was an elite Marine and so he knew how to push his limits, nothing could have prepared him for his time in the war-torn country. The soldier arrived in the war zone under the cover of darkness. That protection didn't last for long. On Grossi's first morning in the Sangin, the Taliban attacked his unit. Suddenly, all Grossi could think about was staying alive. It was a different kind of fighting than we'd ever seen, he told the Dodo in December 2016. It was pretty fierce for a couple of days, and I was so preoccupied defending myself. When the fighting eventually calmed down, Grossi was finally able to stretch his legs. We were in a region that no Americans had been in years. Naturally, Grossi took stock of his surroundings. That's when Grossi noticed a little dog wandering around on his own. Stray dogs were common in this area, but they usually roamed in packs. In addition, they tended to avoid people and responded fiercely if approached. Grossi was struck by the little dog's self-confidence and its demeanor. What's more, the dog even had his own food stash and shelter beneath some bushes nearby. It seemed that the pooch marched to the beat of his own drum, said Grossi. I came across him in this little compound, and we were held up in, and he had a little pile of food. I decided he was just too cool looking not to go over and try to hang out. Something in me just told me to go over and approach this little dog. However, this was against the rules, and Grossi knew that for several reasons, soldiers were forbidden to approach or feed the local dogs. However, after watching the animal for some time, Grossi decided he would make an exception for this little mutt. Armed with beef jerky, Grossi decided to try and make friends with the cute canine and approached him with caution. While it soon became clear that the dog was in a bad way, filthy and covered in critters, Grossi continued to make his way towards the stray anyway. As soon as I got close to him, he started wagging his tail. Right then and there, I was blown away. He was hot, hungry, covered in bugs, and had absolutely no reason to show me any kindness or trust or love, but he did right away. Bowed over by his cheerfulness, Grossi rewarded the little dog with a quick ear scratch. But as he did, the hound got up to follow. From that moment on, he followed me wherever I went, Grossi revealed. The Marine decided to name the dog Fred. What happened next was simply amazing. It goes without saying that Grossi was in Afghanistan to do a job, and part of the job was to visit civilian families at night, make sure Taliban fighters weren't holding them hostage in their homes. But Grossi went to fulfill his duties. Fred followed. Of course, Grossi and the rest of his team were terrified that the dog would bark or otherwise make a noise that would give away their position, but he never did. It was like Fred knew he had to be quiet. And so in time, Grossi and Fred developed an unbreakable bond. When the unit finally had to leave, they had poor Fred follow them all the way to the helicopter. That's when Grossi and his unit risked disciplinary procedures and smuggled their canine companion on board in a duffel bag. It seemed that fate would lend them a hand upon landing, as Grossi noticed a shipping company had set up an office nearby the military base. He inquired about sending Fred to the United States, and although they probably shouldn't have, the guys at the shipping company decided to help. Before Grossi could finalize the paperwork, though, he was called back into the field. The shipping workers, though, promised to look after Fred while he was gone. And after that, things took a dramatic turn. A rocket struck Grossi's location, and the Marine suffered a head injury. In the hospital, all Grossi could think about was Fred. As soon as he was released, he rushed straight to his dedicated doggie and arranged for Fred's passage to the U.S. Charmingly, several people on the base chipped in to help, from the vet who checked Fred over before his trip to the fellow Marine who found a travel crate for the canine. When Fred arrived in New York City, Grossi's family was there to meet him. They had driven from Virginia to retrieve the dog and would look after him for 3 months while Grossi finished his tour. After that, of course, the pair could finally be together again. Today, Grossi and Fred are living happily ever after. traveling across the country sharing the amazing story of how they refused to be beaten in the toughest of circumstances. And not only did they survive their ordeal, but Grossi in particular went above and beyond the call of duty in order to leave no man or dog behind.